Hello Agilers, and welcome back for another vlog where we'll provide first look for another new integration provided with AgilePoint NX version 9. AgilePoint integration for Apache Kafka. Apache Kafka is an open source distributed event streaming platform developed by the Apache Software Foundation. It was created to handle high throughput, fault tolerance, and scalable real-time data streaming applications. It is highly popular within the developer community for high-scale architecture and systems and became the de facto standard for real-time event streaming. At its core, it is a distributed publicly subscribed messaging system that allows different applications or systems to communicate with each other through the exchange of messages. At the same time, at its core, it is also a distributed log, so it can gather the events in this log in a distributed, replicated, scalable, fault tolerance, and persistent way. This combination makes it unique and highly scalable real-time event streaming platform. With the release of version 9, AgilePoint provides integration for Kafka. The integration has two main parts. Part 1, an Agile connector, which acts as a process initiator consumer, meaning it will subscribe to topic events and upon receiving an event will trigger a process instance to process and handle it. Part 2 is a set of process activities. This will allow publish and subscribes event to and from topics as part of the process model automation. And of course, as part of the integration, Kafka access token has been added to handle and manage the connections to Kafka for both the connector and activities. With this integration, you can design application leveraging the best of worlds of the workflow and orchestration architecture, while at the same time, event-driven architecture, also known as choreography. In this next vlog demo, we'll be focusing on both parts of the integration. On the connector for process initiation topic subscription, and on the process activity for the read event and publish event activities. To have the integration in place, and if you'd like to follow along with me on this demo, you'll need AgilePoint NX version 9 and Kafka. Kafka can run anywhere, either locally or in the cloud, as long as you can connect to it from your AgilePoint server instance. We highly recommend using version 3.4 or above, though as the integration uses the core capabilities of Kafka, earlier versions should work just fine. Following is the recipe we'll follow for this demo and overview. We'll start by reviewing the connector configuration and options. We'll follow by reviewing the process activities, the read event and publish event. And lastly, we'll see it in action using a simplified version of a high-level e-commerce application. So, let's get going. Okay, I moved into my AgilePoint NX version 9 beta environment, and first thing we are going to do is to review the Kafka access token. Now, generally speaking, access token can either be an application access token or a global access token. In the case of an application access token, it can only be used by the application in which it was created. It is private for that application, while global access token can be used by different resources in the same environment, such as different applications. In the case of an access token required to be used by a connector, then it must be created as a global access token, and that would be our case. For that, I'll head into the Manage Center, and then App Builder, Global Access Token, and now click on Add Token. In the search box, we'll start type Kafka to narrow down the access token types, and then select the Apache Kafka and click Next. Now we can configure the access token. We'll start by providing it a name. I'll name mine as Kafka Demo. We can optionally provide a description, and next thing is to provide a Bootstrap server URL, which we'll do in a few seconds. Next, we'll need to provide the Kafka hosting type, either on-premises, meaning privately hosted environment, or cloud, such as the Confluent Cloud. In the case of an on-premises, we can select between two different connection types, either a plain text, which is the default and highly popular among personal development environment or standalone development environment, or an SASL/plain text, meaning authenticated environment, in which case we need to provide a username and password. In the case of a cloud hosted environment, we'll need to provide an API key and an API secret, which we can get from the hosted environment. For that, I will head now into a hosted environment to get an API key and API secret. So I'm now in my hosted environment, which I just spinned in the Confluent Cloud. In the hosted environment, I'll head into environments and then click on the environment for which I want to create the access token. Inside the environment, I'll click on the clusters and then head into cluster settings. This is where we can get the Bootstrap server URL. I'll click copy, head back into the AgilePoint access token and paste it in the Bootstrap server URL. Next, for the API key and API secret, we'll head back into the hosted environment and then under cluster, we'll click on API keys. Now we'll click on create key. There's two options, global access or granular access. For now we will use the default global access, but for production environment it's highly recommended to use the granular access. We'll make sure that the default global access is selected and click next, and now the access token is being created. We can now copy the API key, head back into AgilePoint and paste it in the API key field. Do the same for the secret. Head into AgilePoint, paste it into the secret. Now heading back into the hosted environment, let's give it a name. I'll give it a name NXDemo for the description. And at this point, the API key has been created. Note that once you go away from this page, you would never be able to see the secret again. So make sure to download it and store it securely and safely in your vault to make sure in future, in case you need to have the secret again, you can get it. We can go back now to the AgilePoint environment and click on Test Connection. And as you can see, we can successfully connect to our hosted environment. This would now conclude the Kafka access token review, which, as you've seen, quite simple and straightforward and follows on the Kafka requirements for setting a connection. We'll now click on the save. Now that we have the access token ready, we can go ahead and review and configure the connector. For that, we will head into System and then Event Service, and here you can see that a new Kafka Events tab has been added. This allows us to reconfigure the Kafka connector and register for new process initiation topics at any given time without requiring any kind of an AgilePoint server instance reconfiguration or restart. Yet before we can use this for the first time, we must make sure that the AgilePoint Kafka connector has been registered on the AgilePoint server or servers. For that, we will head into the AgilePoint server and then open the server configuration. And select the instance, click on Configure, head into Integration where all the different connectors are registered, and in here we need to make sure two connectors are registered. First is the event service. Now this comes registered by default, so should be here anyway. And the next is the Kafka connector. Now the Kafka connector does not come registered by default. So in case you need to use the Kafka connector and use the Kafka event services, then you must make sure to register it. Now I already have mine registered, so I'm going to remove it just so I can show you what needs to be done. So in case you don't have it registered like I now have, inside the integration, click on the plus to add a new integration or a new register a new connector. Give it a name. I'm going to stick with Kafka just to keep it straightforward, but a name is just a name. You can use any name you like. Then for the impersonator, you can just typically use your system admin, and then next to the assembly, click on the browse, and this will open a browser to the bin under the AgilePoint server instance installation directory, which is by default under C, program files, AgilePoint, AgilePoint server instance, and then bin. Now inside this bin folder, you should find and locate the agilepont.agileconnector.kafka.dll file. Select it and click on the open. Once it's selected, the class name would automatically be set to agilepont.agileconnector.kafka.kafkadaemon, which is the only one available, and you should not touch it, just keep it as it is, and click on the save. This basically is what needed to be done in order to register the Kafka connector on your AgilePoint server side. Now, I'll now click on the OK. This will save the configuration. Now, it also requires you would like to restart your AgilePoint server instance service. If this is the first time you are registering it, then click on yes, because the AgilePoint server instance needs to be restarted so the Kafka connector will be loaded and can be used. Now, I already had mine registered, so I'm going to click on the no for now. But again, keep in mind that when the first time you are registering it, you'll need to restart the service before you can use it. At this point, I'll go back into the event service. And again, once we have registered the connector, we can configure and use the event services. Now, to configure a new process initiation subscription, I'm going to click on the add. And now I'm going to give it a name. So I'm going to give it a name ecom for the e-commerce application demo we are going to use. And now select for the process model. So I'm going to use this one, Kafka sample process model initiation main flow. Now again, keep in mind, this basically registers to a specific topic, and upon receiving an event, it will initiate a new process to handle the message that came in on this topic. Now this would be the message that I would like this connector to spin when receiving a topic, as will a new message on the topic, as we'll configure in a few seconds. Okay, so that would be the process model to initiate. Now I also need to provide a prefix for the instance name, so I'm going to use ecom-eda-kafka-. Okay, so anytime this connector will initiate a new instance from this model upon receiving an event from the topic that we'll configure in a few seconds, then it will have the prefix name of ecom-eda-kafka-. We can also provide an optional description, highly recommended, but I'll skip it for now. And now for the actual Kafka connector configuration, first we need to select the access token. So I'm going to use the access token we just created and reviewed. And then upon selecting that token, AgilePoint, the event service, will go and fetch all the available topics on this target Kafka environment. And now we can select the specific topic we would like to subscribe to. So I'm gonna subscribe to a topic called process initiation. And again, upon receiving a new event on this topic, then a new instance from this model will be initiated, and this instance will have the prefix in its name of ecom-eda-kafka-. The next would be the consumer group. Now I'm going to explain what a consumer group under the read event activity later on this video. So for now I'm going to skip the explaining and going into the details, but I'm just going to give it a name, con-ecom. Okay, I'm going to explain also the read timeout, but basically it means how much does the listener, this subscriber, is going to wait for a new topic, and upon not receiving an event within this time frame, it will just close the connection. Now in the case of the connector, it will just create a new listener after this time. And then pooling frequency, we can reduce it to 3 for instance, or 2. Basically, this is how much time we are going to pull for a new configuration change on this event service. So if we change any kind of a configuration, again, we will check for this every 2 minutes. Now, upon receiving the event, eventually the event will have some message in it, and that's what we are interested in. And we have this option to store the message body that we will receive, in a specific variable that will be exposed to this instance, and this instance can then use the information from this variable to manipulate on this, map it into some application schema, and so on. So my variable would be S for string message body. Okay. Now we can also map message headers into variables in case we need in advanced messaging processing. Then headers are also used to store some metadata, and if that's the case, again, we can just map them and use them as needed. And that basically concludes creating a new event service for registering on process initiation topics. And we can now enable this Apache Kafka event. So it will, once we click on add, it will immediately subscribe on this topic and start listening, or we can uncheck this and enable it later on. And we can also check enable debug logs, which will allow debug any kind of processing within this connector inside the AgilePoint server instance debug log. So this is under the server instance installation directory logs/debug, and then there will be an API-SVC star kind of log, and we can find the detailed trace information of this connector. So I'm gonna enable this Apache Kafka event, and I'm gonna enable the debug log and click on add, and now we have it registered. Now again, as you can see, you can subscribe many or multiple event listeners. Each can listen on a different topic or initiate a different process instance. And again, you can enable, disable these listeners at any given time, or change the configuration. And again, any change or enabling, disabling is strictly done from the event services without requiring any kind of AgilePoint server instance reconfiguration or restart. Now that basically concludes the connector review. Let's start by reviewing the new publish and subscribe activities for Kafka. We'll do that by taking a look on the simplified demo application we'll be using for this demo. Heading into my application builder, I have the simplified demo application already selected. The application has 3 process models. One is the main or parent process model for handling the order. And the other 2 are sub-processes, one for handling the packaging and one for handling the delivery. Let's head into the main process model. Now again, this process has been simplified and removed from many order handling activities in this model to keep just the core, and to simplify it for this demo and focus on the new Kafka integration. First thing to be noted is that V9 has been added with a new activity library for Apache Kafka, which includes the publish event, the read event, and create topic activities for Kafka. Both of these activities, the publish event and read event, are included in this model. We have 2 publish events, one to publish the package event and one to publish the delivery event, and we have 1 subscribe event or read event activity, which we'll be using to wait for the delivery confirmation event, which will allow this process to get pushed with the update the package has been successfully delivered, and order can be updated to complete status, and process can be completed. Let's first review the publish event activity. I'll open the activity for publishing the package event, and as we can see, like any other activity, it starts by providing a name, and optionally we can provide a description. Clicking on the next, we'll head into the actual publish event configuration, starting by selecting an access token. Now again, access token can either be a global access token or an application access token. In our case, we are using the global access token we reviewed earlier. Once access token has been selected, the topic will be populated from the target Kafka environment. And you can select out from the existing topics, or you can also select a variable from our application to dynamically publish the event to this topic. Next is the content type, which has the option to be a JSON, text, or an XML. In the case of a JSON or an XML, we have the option to map payload to app schema, in which case we'll need to provide a payload. Once payload has been provided, we can click on the map request and the open schema mapper, and the schema mapper will be opened. And now, since we are mapping a request, we are sending an event, we are publishing an event from our application to Apache Kafka topic, then on the left hand side we have our application schema, the source, and on the right hand side we have the Apache topic represented by the payload we provided. And we can simply drag and drop and map the fields as needed. The next option is read event from this variable, which will be the only case when selecting content type of text. In this option, we can simply drag one of our application variables as an input, and during runtime, the value included within this variable will be pushed into the topic as the message value. That basically concludes the review of the publish event activity. Let's now head on to the subscribe or read event activity. So it starts just like any other activity, and we need to provide a display name and optionally a description. Clicking on the next will head into the actual read event configuration, which starts just like we reviewed with a publish event by providing an access token and a topic. Next thing is the consumer group. Now, consumer group is quite nice concept with Kafka. Without going deep into Kafka explanation on consumer groups, unlike traditional brokers where there's typically a separation between queue to a topic, Kafka is just topics. Kafka uses consumer groups to allow a set of consumers to cooperate to consume data from topic or topics, in which case Kafka will divide the partitions or events of these topics among them, just like a traditional queue. That has been said, if the group has only one consumer, then it will consume all the events on this topic, just like a traditional topic. With the read event activity, you can provide the name of the consumer group and control this behavior, meaning using a shared value across different read event activities will act as a group of consumers cooperating on the topic, while providing a unique value will provide the typical broker topic behavior. Note that this is an optional field input, and if left empty, then a default group name called AgilePoint will be used. Next is the read timeout in second, where you can set how much time should the activity wait for an event, while if the event has not been received within the time frame, the activity will be completed. In this case, you have the option to set the read event timeout flag, where you can drag one of your application variable, which will be set with the value of true in the case of the activity was timed out. So in your model, you can check and distinct between activity completed as it received the expected event within the time frame expected, or because it just timed out, and handle your flow and logic accordingly, just as we can see on this flow. Next is message content type, which is just the same as we have already reviewed on the publish event activity. So we'll skip that to be reviewed again. But we just mentioned that in the map response, as we are now mapping the response from Apache Kafka topic, then the left hand side represent the response from the topic, the event came in, represented by the payload, and the right hand side represent our application schema. So it's just the other way around from the publish event we have reviewed. Other than that, it's just the same. That basically concludes the review of the read event activity. This concludes the review of the root or the parent process model for handling the order. Next, we have the two sub-processes, one for handling the packaging and the other for handling the delivery. Now again, both have been simplified and has been cleaned out from the typical activities required to handle the packaging and delivery to keep just the core needed for this demo to showcase the integration with Kafka. Let's have a quick review of these sub-processes. We'll start with the packaging sub-process. So basically, we have a human activity to package the order, and once done, using the publish activity, we will publish the event or the message of package ready to Kafka, which is awaited by the delivery process. Moving on to the delivery process, it starts by booking the delivery, which is an automatic activity, and then using the read event, we subscribe to the package ready event, which is published by the package process we have just reviewed. Once this event will come in, then the package will be delivered, and once the package delivery has been confirmed by the delivery person, using the publish event, we will publish the package delivery confirmation event to Kafka, which is again awaited by our parent process using the read event, and will allow him to get pushed and updated that the package has been successfully delivered, and this process can be marked with status completed, which will allow the process also to complete. This concludes the design time review of this demo application for the new two activities added with Kafka, the publish event and the read event activity. Now, before moving on to running this demo and see it in action, some may ask, why is Kafka and events are needed, as everything we've seen so far can be done natively using AgilePoint, meaning to initiate the package and delivery process, we can simply use the sub-process activity, and for pushing the update to the parent process, we can simply use the update parent process data activity, and so on. And that is true, those can simply be done using AgilePoint natively. Yet, without going into the general values of event-driven architecture, in a typical event-driven architecture, events will typically be consumed by different parties, such as the e-commerce, the delivery and packaging system, and not just AgilePoint. So using events in AgilePoint can make more alignment and sense with this kind of architected systems. With a provided Kafka integration with version 9, AgilePoint simply enables this as a system or application design decision and implementation option, and allow you to have the best of both worlds, event choreography and workflow orchestration at the same time. So let's see this in action. As we have few different moving pieces in here, let's start first by having a high-level bird's view on those moving pieces and the events and how they flow between them. So it all starts with the e-commerce application. The e-commerce application is an external system, external to AgilePoint. When receiving a customer order, it will publish a place order event to Kafka. This event will be consumed by the Kafka Agile connector, which will initiate a process to handle this order. This process, in turn, will publish two different events to Kafka. One is the package event and the other is the delivery event. Those events can again be consumed by different subscribers. For once, this can be an external subscriber like the packaging system or contractor, but on the same time it will be also consumed by AgilePoint to initiate the packaging process. Same for the delivery. It will be caught by some external subscriber like the delivery system or contractor or both, but at the same time it will be consumed by the by AgilePoint to initiate a delivery process. Now the delivery process, in turn, when the package has been delivered, will publish the delivery confirmation event to Kafka. This event will be consumed by the root process to handle this order, which will allow him to understand that this order has been delivered and can be closed and completed. And that's basically the flow we are going to see within the demo application. Now again, the application we are going to see is a very simplified version of this use case, and has been cleaned from many other things and just kept the core so we can focus on the integration with Kafka. And this again shows us how we can leverage both orchestration or workflow while at the same time leveraging choreography or event driven, and allow AgilePoint to communicate with both external systems as well as with AgilePoint itself, like different processes or different branches or different pieces of the same process using event messaging. So let's head into the application and see it working. Let us now run the application so we can see this in action. Before doing so, let's head into the Work Center and make sure we currently do not have any pending tasks. Let's also make sure we currently do not have any running instances of this application. For that, we'll head into the Manage Center and then Runtime Manage Processes, click on the filter, make sure we search by the application name, select the proper application name, and then make sure that we are filtering based on the status of running. Click Apply, and as you can see, the result is empty, meaning we currently do not have any running instances of this application. Now, as a reminder, this application will be triggered by the e-commerce application, which is an external application, publishing an event of order placed to a Kafka topic. This Kafka topic is being subscribed by the AgilePoint Kafka connector, and upon receiving the event will trigger this the main flow of this application. So to simulate the e-commerce application publishing the event of to the Kafka topic, I'm going to head into my Kafka environment, and we'll just use a command line utility to push an event to a topic. The topic is the process initiation, which is subscribed by the AgilePoint connector for Kafka, and the event or the message is simply the order data, which is needed by the application. We have the customer full name, the customer ID, the total amount, the shipping address, and most importantly, we have the event, which is order placed. So to send this into the Kafka topic, I'm just gonna click enter, and now the event has been pushed to this Kafka topic. Now heading back into the Manage Center, clicking on the refresh, we can now see that the main flow of this application has been triggered. So let's drill into it, and so we can track it as it progresses. Now, as we can see, the process is currently parking on this delay. It's an explicit delay of 1 minute I placed just to slow down things so we can track them as they move. Now, once this delay will be completed, these two events will be published into Kafka. One is the package event, the other one is the delivery event. This will in turn initiate the corresponding processes, and then it will park in here in this read event activity, and we'll be waiting for the delivery confirmation event. So we will be waiting for this delay to be completed. This should take another few seconds, and once it will be completed again, these two events will be published and the corresponding processes will be created. And once the package process will be created, a task will be created for me and awaiting for me in the Work Center. So as we can see, this delay has been completed, the two messages has been pushed, the process is now currently parking in this read event activity, and awaiting for the delivery confirmation message. As the package process has been initiated, If I'll head now into my work center and refresh, we can now see that I have the package task waiting for me to package the order. Let's also head back to the manage center, go back to the search result, and as you can see, we can now see that the two instances are showing up. One is for the packaging and one is for the delivery. Let's drill into them so we can track them as they progress. So for the delivery process, this is the current activity for packaging the order, which is awaiting for me in the work center. Once I'll complete this will get in here, the push activity, push message activity, and we will push the package ready event to the Kafka. This event is being awaited by the delivery process. So let's drill into it. It's awaited by the delivery process in here. And once this event will be received, then we will move on to the deliver the activity and get the delivery confirmation. So let's get this moving. I'm going to head back into my work center, click on the package task. The form will be opened up. Now again, this is a simplified form, a simplified application, just keeping the core that we need in order to run this demo and showcase the integration with Kafka. So I'm just going to click on package is ready and now click on the submit. Now let's head into my manage center and this should refresh in a few seconds, and as the event came in, then it will be completed, and as you can see, it moved on to the delivery confirmation. This is another task now waiting for me as a delivery person in the work center. So let me head back into the work center, close this one, refresh, and now we can see we have the package delivery task waiting for me. I'm going to open it. This time I'm going to say yes, package delivered, and once I'll click on the submit, then this will be completed. This event will be published to Kafka. This event is the delivery confirmation event, which is awaited by our main flow in here. Now, once this message will come in, this will allow this process to be pushed with the update that the package has actually been successfully delivered, which will allow him to go through the happy path and update the order status to be completed, and then just complete this process. So let's get this moving. I'm going to head back into my work center and already selected package delivered yes. Click on the submit, head back to the manage center, and this should refresh in a few seconds. And as you can see, the message has been received. This activity has been completed. As it's been completed, we went into the happy path and updated the order status to be completed, and by that we have completed this process. This now basically concludes our runtime demo for the Kafka integration. With the integration to Kafka, AgilePoint can communicate through the exchange of messages both externally with third-party systems as well as internally across processes, activities, and branches. This enables leveraging best of both worlds, event choreography and workflow orchestration, to create highly scalable applications. This now concludes our video to review the AgilePoint integration for Kafka provided with AgilePoint NX version 9. Hope you find this to be insightful and a valuable integration. Thanks a lot for your time, and keep tuned for future videos and announcements.